Good evening and thank you for joining us on the hot seat. Tonight we speak to a member of the upper house, that is the Senate, and it's a lady who's so passionate about mental health. I'm speaking to none other than Senator Sylvia Kasanga. Karibu sana mheshimiwa on the show.
Thank you so much, my dear.
How's
I'm
it
really happy
going?
to be here. It's okay. It's tough, but it's a good challenge.
It's a good
Yeah,
challenge.
it's a good challenge. Yes,
How-
I'm up to the task.
You're up to the task. So far you can't
Yes.
complain.
Yes, I thank God.
How
Yeah.
is Senate taking you?
Senate has been a very interesting experience in my life. In fact, I look forward to probably writing something about it.
Oh,
Yes,
like a
considering, yeah, like a book or something. Because, you know, I came from a professional angle completely into a political, field and arena. It's like you're being thrown into the deep end of a pool, people usually say. So it's been very interesting having to transit and balance the two because I still practice. I'm an architect and I still have my practice running. I'm also an arbitrator. I still hear cases and I don't want to let go of that. It's the thing that keeps my mind, sharp. And these are things I love to do. But then there's the service part of it also.
You say politics does not keep your mind sharp.
Politics has a way of sucking you in. And if you go in there, then you'll just be political. But you need to keep your brain sharp. You need to keep, still engaging in other activities other than what we do in the house.
All right.
Yeah, although the work of the house is a lot. It's also a lot. But yeah, you have to keep balancing. It's a balancing act.
Great.
Yeah.
So before now we go to the works of the house and how Senate is a thing and how much work is involved. We just need to know quite a bit of your story, like where were you born, how was your childhood like?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. So I come from Lower Eastern, which is Ukambani area. I was born in Makueni, Emali, a little village called Kasikeo. And although, of course, we later moved to Machakos, my parents moved to Machakos where they bought land and settled there. And of course, I went to school like every other Kenyan in Machakos Primary. I went to high school in Loreto Limuru. Of course, because you do well, then you go to Loreto Limuru. And then from there, I went to Jomo Kenyatta University where I did my architecture degree. So I'm an alumni.
Also my university.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
used to share something.
Yeah.
But were you the only child? Did you have siblings? How was the relationship like?
Oh, okay. You want to know that much?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
goodness. So I come from a family of 5. I'm the middle child. 1 sister and 3 brothers. One passed away about 15 years ago. The other 2 are younger brothers. So that's our family. We come from a political family. My father was a politician in Ukambani for a very long time. He was a young politician in his
What was
early
his name?
20s. His name is
Back then?
Kasanga Mulwa.
So
Kasanga
that's where
Mulwa.
you picked it from.
Yes, that's where it comes from. He was the MP in Kibwezi. Then Kibwezi used to be like the whole of Makueni County. It was a big constituency those days. I mean, those were days when they really used to serve. Not like today. Those were real. The sacrifices they had to do and go through is amazing. In fact, their stories, every time you hear them, you're very humbled by what they had to do to bring service to people during those days. And my mom is a teacher, still is. She runs a group of schools. And my siblings are all helping in their own fields. One is helping with the schools, one is in finance, one is a medical pharmaceutical doctor. Yes, and then there's myself, who is an architect and arbitrator.
All right.
Yeah, so that's really my family.
Great to hear that.
I'm a mother of 2.
Wow.
Then you should know, since you've asked, so I'm also a mother. Yes.
So how was it studying in high school? Like, were you the sharp kids? Were you the naughty one?
Oh, wow. I've not been asked that question in a long time. I enjoyed my high school. I was a naughty child, but I was a
Really?
good performer. Yes.
Oh, you're the extreme.
I was extreme. So Form 1, Form 2, and early Form 3, I was really a naughty child. But somewhere in Form 3, senses came back to me and I moved my desk from back to the front desk and then
Focus
you
came
just
back.
focus, yeah. You focus, you get your A-,
Yes.
and then Jomo Kenyatta from there.
Great.
Yes, and campus life, of course, our campus life is
I mean,
it's an
Juja
exciting
boys.
time.
How was that? How
It
was
was
it
an
when you were
exciting
there?
time. It was a small community. I think we were less than 2,000 students when we were there. This was between 96 and 2001. Jomo Kenyatta was a very small community. and we knew each other. School of Architecture, we all knew each other from year 1 to year 6 and would help each other out. And we knew some of the engineering students because they were there for a long time. So some of my friends are the engineers who are there up to year 5. And, you know, good friendships were created in campus. We had to hang out with each other because, unlike in Nairobi, you have nowhere else to go. Yeah. Our places to hang out were very few. Yes. And Nairobi was very far those days. It was really far. You had to plan to come to Nairobi to hang out. So we created these small communities that we grew very tight. Very good friendships came out of Jomo Kenyatta. So it was a good life. Right. Yeah, it was a good early life.
Great. And
yes.
Then you now cleared with your degree?
I finished with my degree, and I knew for a long time that I just wanted to do my own business. I went to do my 18 mandatory months of internship. I got my practicing license and immediately started practicing from the living room of our home. So I've been self-employed for almost 20 years now.
Till date?
Till to date, yes.
How was it starting business at that point? Because as we speak, I mean, it's very tough for young people at this point.
It's never easy to start a business. Even then, even now, it's never easy. I mean, most businesses, you know, don't even make it past, you know, small businesses don't make it past the 3-year mark. But I realized early on that I needed to upgrade my skills. So I did a master's in business administration to help with running of the business. And then, you know, about quality work. You know, the work works for you. If you produce good work, you work well for people, because our work is mostly consultancy, then the work comes back to you. You know, it's your clients who refer other clients to you. And that's how really the business has grown. But it was very tough. I won't deny you. It was tough. There were moments of giving up. But somehow, one thing always leads to another. And, you know, the good Lord is gracious. In fact, at one point, I wanted to move away from the profession entirely and go into something different.
Was it that bad?
It was tough. In fact, what helped us mostly, the Kibaki government, when it came in and after some time it took root, then business began to flourish. But before that, early 2002, 2003, it was really tough. Honestly, it was tough. I can really understand some of our youth today, what they're going through when you come out of campus. You've studied for 6 years, you have a title to your name, but you have really nothing to show for it. It's very disheartening. But with a lot of support system, of course, from home, and again, you know, one client and two, they go and bring their friends, then slowly the business begins to pick, and then you just remain consistent to your cause. But it was tough.
All right. Speaking of how tough it was, because now it's become tougher, I think, with the advent of COVID.
Yes.
Businesses are closed. I mean, what would your message be to young people who maybe started businesses or have the plans, but things just seem not to move?
Yeah.
And they're almost giving up.
Yeah, I always tell them, I mentor a lot of young people, and over my career I've had a lot of youths from JKUAT and University of Nairobi. I encourage them to come during their long holidays for coaching and teaching, and I coach a lot of them. But now with things being so tough, I've asked young people, it's time to think outside the box. And because the environment is such that you can actually think outside the box, unlike during our times when we were so restricted with the things we could do, younger people now are, the world is a lot more opened up. I think technology and social media has brought a lot more opportunities for young people. So I really encourage them to do their things differently, to look to do their things a bit differently, as opposed to the traditional way we've been doing. Like now for architects, I say, yes, you have an architecture degree, but you've been taught to be critical, to be a critical thinker. So you can apply yourself in different ways. Who says you only have to design a house? You can design a chair, you can design a bottle, you can design papers, you can design anything. So you think outside the box. So I have a group of young girls who are designing cards, for instance, and they just went into designing of success cards and different cards for different moods, and they would get these orders coming in, and they would do their business through Facebook and Instagram. And this is the sort of thing we are talking about. Landscape architects now have transformed themselves completely. Using Instagram and just social media platforms, you're able to have little gardens which you can sell certain plants, and you package them nicely, and you see business begins to flow. So I've been encouraging them not to give up, but to really research and see how they can do the same thing they've been taught, but a little differently. And therein lies the trick, I think, in today. Even for us who've been in business for long, it's difficult to transform ourselves. But now with COVID, I'm telling you, we have been forced to think differently. We have no choice. Yeah. In fact, there's no survival if you think in the same traditional way. Yeah, we shall not be doing business the same way going forward. Yeah, so really just people should not give up.
right.
Let's just tweak our minds to think differently.
I like that.
Yeah.
And now you now went into business purely.
Yes.
Is there a time you like fully gave up and just stopped and went to other things, or did you just keep moving?
Oh, me, I love what I do. I love my trade. I love my architecture. It does get tough. Sometimes you meet with different stakeholders who can be very difficult and discouraging. But somehow you also meet another one who is encouraging, and somehow you keep going on. So I've never really given up on my trade. Yeah, I hang on to it. Even now when it is at its lowest, because now I'm telling you, this year of COVID, last year and this year has been the lowest I have seen in my career so far, other than when I was starting off. In fact, the only time I compare it is when we were starting off. It's been that bad. The environment, the business environment has been that bad. This is the time I have thought, oh my goodness, I might have to really rethink this whole thing. But other than that, I've just stayed true to my cause. I enjoy my work, and I encourage young people, you have to do what you love, because then you have a reason, it propels you to wake up every morning and go at it and go at it and go at it. It's very critical to find that which you enjoy.
You love. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, and now from that, you somehow transitioned into politics.
Yes.
What motivated you to that?
It was by default. It's an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell it, I have to tell it a bit carefully because of the way the environment has been.
Yes.
I don't know if you get me, but
I understand. Politics.
I have to say it really. Well, my father was in politics, so number one, it comes from there. I personally wasn't that political, but I had the sense of politics in me. I was part of the student leadership in JKUAT, and when I was in high school, I was, a naughty child, not because you want to be naughty, but because you kind of want to go against the grain. You want things done differently, that sort of angle to it.
Yes.
But really what happened, how I ended up with the nomination, is I put in my papers. I just woke up one day and I said, you know what, let me put in my papers. What is the worst that can happen? But there was already a vehicle. What I have to own up is that I didn't struggle to look for a vehicle to do it. The Wiper Democratic Movement is the party of our region. It's the party that some of us, our parents worked hard to create it, and bring the leaders of Ukambani together. So it's very easy for me to put in my papers. And of course, without a doubt, my papers will create interest because, there's the name. That's why I'm saying I have to talk carefully. Yeah, because some people will, of course, say, what they will say. So anyway, I put in my papers, and my papers are strong. And the party leader looked at my papers and he said, what if we give somebody who's professional for a change? Let's see what they can do with the platform. And therefore I landed the first. But it's also sufficient to say that the family has worked hard for the party. So it is because of that sort of background that then he said, okay, let's give this nomination and let's see where this child will take it to. And when the nomination came through and, the results were announced, and I remember my name was, we had made the cut, Wiper Democratic Movement, Sylvia Kasanga, and my party leader called me. And I said to him, let me come and see you. So the next day I went to see him. And I said to him, okay, now that it is here, it's one thing talking about it, it's another when it finally lands. And then your heart starts palpitating and thinking, oh, MG, here I am now, what am I going to do? And everyone is calling you. So anyway, I went to see my party leader and asked him what is his expectation of me. And he said, you know what, we made the decision. There was a panel that was selecting, and they said, we made the decision because you have strong professional papers. We want to see what you're going to do with this platform. So go ye forth and show us what you can do with it. And that is the charge he gave me as my party leader. And I really felt a load on my shoulders. I felt, now really, you cannot joke with this thing. Yeah. So that's how I found myself in Senate and crafting my own agenda, because then that is a duty I was given, and it had to be an impactful agenda. Yes.
Wow. So the day you got in Parliament for the first time and you're sworn in, how would you describe that whole feeling at that point?
Whoa, that was overwhelming. My first the first time I set foot in Parliament was the day before the swearing in. We had gone for rehearsals. And the clerk was so funny. He said, we have to rehearse the oath, because it's a word that a lot of people can't pronounce.
Yes.
Conscientious. And in fact, he made us repeat the word severally. Conscientious. And if you can't say it in English, he says you then do your oath in Kiswahili. So we were made to to do that. And of course, he took us through the motions of what will happen on the day of taking oath. And then the next day, of course, you come all dolled up. It was in the morning, and, you know, some relatives have been allowed in chamber. It was a very overwhelming feel. I can't even explain. It was overwhelming. The minute you take oath, you know, you feel it. You've given a promise that is not a small promise, yeah, to the Lord above. Yes. So I felt it myself. I can speak for myself, and it's haunted me every day.
Really?
Yes, it has.
All right. And with that haunting,
yeah.
What's your biggest achievement now that your party leader gave you the whole one to like go and do your thing? What is the one thing you can say that you've done in Senate? What has been your impact?
Oh, my impact, most definitely, two things. One is mental health.
Yes.
No question about it. We brought mental health to the national platform. That's a huge achievement, because no one imagined you could debate matters mental health at that high platform. Big achievement. And I managed to bring in the stakeholders together, to rally together, because I found a lot of stakeholders in the industry who work, you know, separately, differently. The ministry had not really brought everyone together. You know, so a lot had not been done. So when I came into the picture, the first thing I did was to get everybody on the table, all the stakeholders on the table, and they became my partners, and we worked together, and we said, we're going to amplify this conversation. And I'm glad that it was there even slightly before the COVID, because you can see what has happened post-COVID. Yes. And I'm happy that it's on everybody's lips, and it is in the media houses. It's a big achievement, and for me, I can say, there I have done something. So, yeah.
Saying that you've done something, I mean, just the other day, the DCI released a report that about 485 people
yes,
had
committed suicide
in 3 months' time.
Yes.
How does that make you feel as an advocate for mental health, and what do you feel is not being done right?
First, that there's some statistic is a very big achievement, because before there was never any statistics to do with mental health. None whatsoever. It's not like these things have not been happening before. There's an escalation because of COVID, but there's also an escalation because finally people are aware and they're reporting. So for me, that is a big deal, that the reporting is actually happening. That now the government institutions are beginning to take stock of the mental health issues and the cases, for me, is a big deal. It was never there before. This was the thing that nobody spoke about and nobody really cared about, other than a few people here and there in little pockets. So that we can have this conversation at that national level, for me, is a good thing. Has the government done enough? Of course not. And that's where we are now. That is why the advocacy work happened. That is why the awareness campaign started from where we are, because the idea was to put pressure on government to tell them, hey, it's not for us to do the awareness. The government needs to be doing this awareness campaign, the way they did for HIV. In fact, I've always likened it to the stigma fighting that happened during HIV in the late 80s, early 90s. That is how mental health awareness campaigns should be run. And that has been what we are saying. And then over and above that is the legislative frameworks that are not there. And that is now where really my duty as a legislator now came in. Because I said we need the legislative reforms, and they needed to come urgently. And for government to be pushed to do something, you can imagine the amount of advocacy work that happened. So a lot needs to be done. In fact, if we were to start the conversation on mental health now, we will not finish, because there you need to give me like half a day. Because, you know, we've combed the length and breadth of what government needs to do, both at national and at county. We have combed that. We have identified the best way to deal with mental health in a country like ours that has not had any dealing with mental health. And we've said it needs to start from home. The conversations must start at home, which is the source of a lot of mental health issues, for children especially, because a lot of mental health issues start at childhood, then they're not dealt with, then they escalate. They metamorphose into more severe mental health issues. And of course, the fighting stigma so that people can come out and seek help. Lastly, of course, is to make sure we have a battalion of practitioners who can move from door to door, talking about mental health, creating, awareness and being the first line. We even at one forum, I think one forum we had, I said, where are the teachers? The teachers are first line responders when it comes to mental health. Because when your child goes to school, in fact, our children spend a lot of time with their teachers in a year than they do with the parents. So the teacher becomes the parent and the first responder. They're the first ones who can identify when a child has a psychological problem. So I said teachers must be taught, how to intervene when it comes to kids. Some basic intervention, which then they can escalate to other practitioners. So this is a conversation that we have combed, I can tell you, every breath, every length and breadth. And now it's a question of pushing government to do it. And government woke up. At some point they woke up before COVID. The task force of mental health was appointed, if you remember. Dr. Njenga was chairing it. They went round and collected, views from Kenyans, and Kenyans came out, Kenyans really came out to give their views on mental health. And the task force had this report that was beautiful. I remember when I chaired the ad hoc committee on COVID, we demanded that the report be unveiled. It was unveiled in the height of COVID. Yeah, and after it was unveiled, because it's a very good report, I've used it now a lot in my conversations, it identified the social determinants of mental health, and it was instantly, you could see from their report the impact we shall have post-COVID on mental health. And you can see it's already happening. And so we are pushing the government during COVID time. We're telling government, now we can see the impact of COVID right now. Can you imagine what it will do now a year, 2, 3, 4 down the line? When you'll now start seeing, all the trauma that Kenyans have gone through during COVID will now manifest in the long term. What is the government going to do about it? Where is the battalion of mental health practitioners who are going to help Kenyans, these 3, 4, 5 years down the line, because we will need them. Look at our children, our girls who are impacted so severely last year. Did you see another report where we had about 385,000 girls who got pregnant during COVID? Yes. Can you imagine the mental impact, the wellness, and the children who they carry in their wombs? So a lot needs to be done.
So a lot needs to be done for sure. But as part of the leadership of this country, considering COVID has pushed people to
the limit, completely.
What's the urgent solution? If there is one that can at least help people manage, because we don't know how long COVID goes.
Yeah, when it comes to mental health, first awareness is most critical. Just you knowing by yourself, today I'm not feeling well mentally, first has helped. It has helped you in the sense that now you can seek the right help. But many times people may be mentally unwell and they don't even know. So let's start first with awareness. The least the government could do is, create these avenues of awareness creation. And even if the government cannot do it by itself, because it's such a mammoth task, this is where now they partner with stakeholders. And stakeholders are many, and they're there. And we should just be having a series of conversations happening in different parts of the country with different stakeholders who have been now mandated by government. Can you go out there? Let's talk about this thing. Those are easy interventions. And by the way, they don't even need to cost much money. A lot of the organizations that I saw working in the mental health field, they're actually even being funded from outside. So it's a question of government coordinating. It's just a coordination issue. Those are very simple stopgap measures. And I know they're beginning to happen. The other thing is for county governments to rise to the occasion. Again, health is a devolved function. So again, county governments don't necessarily need to wait for national government to come and tell them, hey, our citizens need help. So some county governments have risen to the occasion and have actually, availed, health workers, community health workers who are trained on mental health, and psychologists. Like in my county, Makueni, I'll tell you, we have psychologists at core. Yeah, at level 3, which is good. Now let's have more at level 2. Let's have others who go even door to door. And those are easy things for any government to do. And governments are beginning, the county governments, some of them are really beginning to wake up. Even as they wait for, policy and legislative reforms to happen, there are those, stopgap measures that can be done. And then, of course, amongst ourselves as Kenyans, we rise to the occasion that mental health is real. Yeah. All
right. And just trying to understand what pushed you to have this passion for mental health.
When 2017, late 2017, if you remember when we took oath of office, first we went into a very, what do you call it, turbulent political time.
Yeah, because of the Machozi Mondays.
You remember Machozi Mondays, then Resist Movement, then second presidential election, then the People's President. So really, we didn't start working seriously until 2018. And the first thing I did, I called the Makueni Youth Empowerment Service chairperson. And I told him, come and see me. Tell me what I can do for you people. You have an extra senator. Them, they have two. So I said, you have an extra senator. Me, I don't have constituents. You are my constituents. Come and tell me what I can do for you. And I held a long meeting with the MES, we call them MES team. They came several leaders. And they had a whole raft of, points that they had that I could do for them. But out of all those, what really struck me was the drug use and abuse that's happening along the towns on the Mombasa Road, because Makueni has a large frontage of Mombasa Road, and there are truck stop towns, little ones, along the way. So the report they gave me is that a lot of young people, when they don't have school fees so they can't go to school, or girls who've fallen pregnant in high school and they've left school, they end up in these little towns to find something to eat. Yeah? Or children who finished high school and they can't get into campus, or standard 8 students who've left and they can't get into high school. They end up in these truck towns to look for something to eat. And more often than not, they end up in drugs. And the scenario they painted is a very sad scenario. And my focus zeroed in on that. And, in a special way was the young mothers. I was particularly concerned about the young mothers and what they could be going through. And I said to them, this is where I would like to narrow in, because I want to do something for posterity. This thing requires intervention that is not just get an organization to come and fund and do. No. You have to think about it really, really long term. And I told them to leave me with that question. What do we do? What do we do about this? Now, it coincided with a time when I was talking with some Polish doctors about bringing maternal health care to Makueni. So we were having a meeting later that evening with them. And I said to them, I've been brought this problem and I don't know how to deal with it. What do I do? What do I do with these young people? And they said, drug use and abuse goes with mental health. What are your mental health laws like? What do you do with your mental health and, those who are mentally ill? And like everybody else, I'd never thought about it. How would you even link the two? I'd never thought about it. And so one of the doctors we were with, one of the local doctors we were sitting around with said, you know what? I'll get you somebody to come and talk to you about mental health so that you can understand what there is. And they organized for me one Dr. Kitazi. She had been the superintendent at Madare for 10 years. And she came and sat with me in my office for 4 hours. She had a lot of time for me. She also didn't understand why I would want to know much about mental health. But I said, Daktari, I'm here. I've been brought for a question and I need to understand. So, teach me, educate me. It was a class of mental health 101. That's what I call it to this day. Because she took me from the beginning to where the challenges are. She said, first, this is what is mental health. Mental health canvases anxiety, whatnot, all those. Those are the not so severe ones. Then there are the severe ones. Then there are the very severe ones. And she really broke it down for me. We talked about the stigma. Why is it that it's so scary? Because we associate mental health. Because first you imagine being mentally ill is that severe one that you see when you see the, and I don't like to use the word, but the madman who's walking on the streets, that for you is mental health. That's a mentally ill person. And we shun that. You don't want to be associated with it. The stigma around it is so big. That's why nobody comes to rescue them, because what you do with them, the relatives don't want them. In other cases, they are caged and they are hidden away from the view. If neighbors know you have a mentally unwell person, your whole family then is deemed to be mentally unwell. You will not get married from that family. Those things. We discussed the length and the breadth of it. And she shocked me and, surprised me and told me, even somebody suffering from anxiety or a sleep disorder or an eating disorder or just, certain levels of stress that you can't control and blah, blah, blah. All those are clustered as mental illness. And I said, what? Yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder, which many people suffer and they don't realize they are suffering because you've been involved in a car accident or a traumatic event, which you've not dealt with in your psyche, yeah, and then it causes you nightmares. It causes you panic attacks at night, and you don't even understand what you're going through. And you keep going to the doctor because you have these headaches that won't go away and whatnot, and you get medicated, or you do a lot of series of diagnoses. You know, she took me to understand, really, that mental health must come first. Because many times you're treating your physical body when the problem is not your physical body, but is a manifestation of your mental illness. So she took me all through that. Then after she had taught me that, now we went through what is the issue, what is ailing the environment in our country, and we went through the legislation. And she told me there is no legislation. 1989 amended briefly, but an archaic law that was never promulgated alongside with the new constitution. Still there, sitting there, nobody doing anything about it. We went through the policy, a progressive policy, but that needed upgrading and, you know, modernization and, you know, whatnot. Then we went through the institutions, or the lack of Mathare itself, and the amount of work it needs, and the challenges she went through when she was superintendent in Mathare. After the 4 hours, without a doubt, I knew what my work is. Right there,
from that.
I knew what my work is. I just knew what my work is. And the next step I took from there was to, of course, go to Parliament. Parliament has all the resources when it comes to legislative intervention. So, of course, I go to the clerk and I say, I want to get into mental health. I need to get all the information that we can on mental health. So immediately the researchers are put to task, and they pull out any attempt at changing the legislation was brought to my desk, and I could see. And then the next step is to talk with the Ministry of Health, because they're the key stakeholders. So I made an appointment there, and I met then Dr. Juguna. He was still acting director of mental health. He met me and he said, I told him, you know, I want to amend the law because it has never been amended. And, you know, you could see the shock in his face. He said, oh, that's good luck. This is what we've tried. He fished out for me any material they had tried as a ministry, and he said, yeah, if they're going to help you, let them help you. And that's where the journey started. And it's been a long journey. It's been tough,
but it's great.
But it's very fruitful.
The impact has been
very rewarding for me, very fulfilling.
Great.
You can actually, it now dawned on me what a platform like this one can do for people. You can actually make an impact on the lives of Kenyans with such a platform.